Recording. Hi, welcome to you watching today. This is the Good Morning Show. David Cohen with you with our guest, a couple of guests, David Bookbinder, and then we're going to have Karen Virdi on in a little bit. This is what we're talking about today. The art of balance, staying sane in an insane world. Stressed out, does life seem harder than it should be? Then you've come to the right place. The battle of balance is a life and death struggle, and staying balanced, we enjoy life to the fullest. When we lose balance, life gets hard, and boy, have we ever been knocked off our balance beam of late, the past month. And in the art of balance, staying sane in an insane world, life coach and psychotherapist David J. Bookbinder shows you how to stay on top of forces that unbalance us. Recover quickly, and if you get knocked down, be prepared for whenever life throws you a curveball. The art of balance doesn't just give a man a fish so he can eat that day. It teaches you how to fish, which is in this time really important. Time-tested self-help tools and techniques are integrated into a system that helps you create your own tools, develop your own techniques, refine your own strategies, and therefore become master of your own destiny. In this book, you'll learn about the 6-step process. We're going to talk about that a bit today for recovering and maintaining life balance, plus how to recognize when your balance is shaky before you fall, how to boost your emotional resilience and stay steady on your feet, and how to fend off unbalancers if they strike. David J. Bookbinder is a psychotherapist, life coach, and photographer. He came to psychotherapy and after a transformative near-death experience shifted him toward art and healing. And as a coach and therapist for the past 15 years, he's helped people find balance, build resilience, overcome fear, and expand their lives. David, before we get into the book and everything, what did you learn from that near-death experience, and how did that, it shaped your life by getting into what you're doing now, but what were you doing before that, and what else changed for you after that near-death experience?
Everything changed, actually. I had been a writer for a long time, had a master's degree in creative writing, got sidetracked by a bad back accident. Ended up being a technical writer for what I thought would be a couple of years, ended up doing it for 10, and felt trapped in that position. Finally went back to grad school to pick up where I'd left off to get a PhD in English. And while I was there was a medical malpractice, as it turned out, almost killed me. And it took me several years to come back from that. And I had changed during the process, partly from the near-death experience, partly from lots of continuing medical problems. A relationship I was in that I thought was going to continue on indefinitely fell apart. I decided I wasn't really wanting to be focused on English anymore and literature. And so I wandered for a while. At some point I realized I had thought I was on this path, and really for quite a long time, this part of my hand is the incident where I nearly died. From that point on, I was on a different path. And what I learned from that is something that I'm applying now, that we all thought we were on this path until the pandemic hit, or it could be this path, whatever the path was. We thought the future was going to be somewhat like the past and would continue on. Now we don't know where we are. We're on some other path that started here where the pandemic started. And what I think I learned overall from that experience was I couldn't just go back to the old path. I find the phrase these days is a new normal. And in evaluating who I was and what I'd learned from that process, from going through trauma, in the back of my mind, I'd always thought about psychotherapy, but I thought, no, I'm a writer. I'm going to keep on that path. I decided, no, I think I'm going to embrace this path now. So I quit grad school, went back to school for a different grad school, and became a therapist. Lots of other things changed too. I mean, it was sort of like the old me was before the near-death experience, and the new me was afterwards. And it took quite a long time, maybe 10 years for the two to come together. And all that time, trying to get back to that original path. And when I finally gave up on that, that's when things started again for me.
Did you have a softening of the heart? an epiphany, anything like that during that time? That
Oh, sure. I mean, when I came back from it, I felt like I had seen a whole different way of living, and I had experienced it, and I had good news for people, kind of. And I found that there was a lot of resistance to that. But some of the things, I've been very sort of left brain oriented. I'd been an engineering student once upon a time.
Hmm.
And although I could do creative work, it was sort of from an analytical point of view. And that all changed. A lot of the analytical things I used to be able to do were more difficult, but then these more intuitive things would take their place. Some of them were sort of trivial. I used to be able to do fairly complex long division in my head. I couldn't do that anymore. But I could look at a bunch of queries and say, well, that's about $98. And it would be $97 or $99 or right on the button, $98. I could do this kind of intuitive quantification things instead of adding them up. I used to be able to sort of look into machines and understand how they work, or look into computer programs and understand how they work. And then I found I could look into people and found how they work. That's really what led me to doing. And even my photography changed. It was documentary, sort of street photography. And then I shifted to this use of color and looking for things, the beauty in things, I suppose, rather than maybe the grittiness of things. So there are many changes along those lines.
When we go through what we're going through now, a pandemic that affects every element of our life, especially our health, we have thoughts and fears that, oh gosh, what if I get it? And what if I die? You actually had that near-death experience.
Yep.
And we're all fearful of that day coming. I think I'm more fearful of how I'm going to go as opposed to moving on to the next existence.
I missed a word. I'm sorry. You're more fearful of?
I think I'm more fearful of how I'm going to go as opposed to the going.
Right.
So what maybe words of wisdom or peace of mind can you impart on others who maybe are fearing, the inevitable end, having gone through what you went through?
That's a good question, and it's one that I've given a lot of thought to, because I look back on that time and I look back on the feelings I have now. I'm 69. I've got some underlying health conditions that are listed, the more vulnerable ones. So I know I'm at a lot of risk. And I'm feeling a similar kind of fear that I felt in that hospital when I realized I was bleeding out. At the same time, I'm thinking back to that time. What helped me through that time? What did I learn from that time? What can I apply from that time to now? A thing that helped me out the most back then and in subsequent times when I had other medical issues come up was Tibetan Buddhist. It's called a gatha. It's sort of like a poem. I don't know if I have it around here. It's basically on dealing with illness and death with courage and wisdom is the theme of it. And the fundamental idea of it is that there are essentially 4 possibilities. You could get through this fine, no problem. You could have a small problem and then get over it. You could have a very difficult problem and recover, possibly even with some continuing damage, maybe fully recovered, or you can die. Those are the only real possibilities. And through repeating this prayer, or this poem, each of which examined those 4 possible outcomes and found it to see it as a way to benefit all sentient beings. I found that I was calmer. At first, I didn't want 2 of those outcomes, and I resisted doing it. And a friend of mine who's a Tibetan Buddhist who gave it to me said, no, just keep repeating it. You don't have to believe in it right now, just repeat it. And this happened at a time when I was being hit with a lot of different medical issues all at once, and a lot of them were hard to figure out, and one of them could have been fatal. And I was frantically researching things on the internet and calling up places and trying to get different sorts of tests and basically freaking out. It was as tricky as I'd been since the moment in the hospital. And there I only had 15 minutes to panic. I had lots of time to panic during this period. And I found that as I was accepting the outcome of a difficult death, but treating it as an experience rather than as a tragedy or a difficult illness that I struggle through, but it's also an experience. And I remembered the experience of recovering from the near-death experience and the surgery and all complications after that, and how rich in a way that experience had been for me. I became calmer. I still didn't want either of those two outcomes, but I stopped researching things on the internet. I was just starting out as a therapist then. I started being able to really focus on my clients after a brief period of struggling with that. And then I just figured whatever is out there for me is already out there. And I just have to do the best I can to try to ensure the best outcome. Can't guarantee it. And that's the reality. So it all came down to acceptance of those possibilities, making my peace with them. And that's how I'm processing all this now. It's the same thing. You know, the same process each of us goes through on an individual basis when we run into something very hard. I mean, that's the gist of my book, is similar to what as a world we are going through, as a nation we are going through, and as each of us is going through now. The only difference is at the time for me, it was just me. Now it's 7.2 million people going through the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, 7.2 billion, by the way.
Billion.
I know. So your book came out about a year and a bit ago. Did you have a premonition, that we're going to go through what we're going through collectively, right now? Like, was there a...
No, I was really surprisingly prescient. Yeah, I started this about 3 years ago. I think the stimulus for it was Donald Trump being president. I mean, I would wake up every morning, and I'm in Massachusetts. We're a liberal state, and I've been liberal my whole life. And I would just think, Donald Trump can't possibly be president. This is a crazy time. And then I thought, oh, this is sort of an insane world now. How do you stay balanced in this? And at that time, I had a huge return of former clients and a huge amount of new clients wanting to come in for therapy. It was almost overwhelming. And I thought, I need to figure out how to get people through this and maybe give them something they can do on their own that they don't necessarily need a therapist for. So I started looking through the stages that people go through and that I have gone through, that my clients have gone through when they start out having a problem. Then at some point they realize they're out of balance. Then they sort of start to evaluate, what got me here and what can I do here? And they're still maybe freaking out. They might seek help at that point. And then they go through 4 more stages. They do a plan to try to see what their resources are, what their options are. That I call the evaluation stage. Then from that plan, they start to see things they can implement. They identify people that can help them, things they can do, ways to either get back to their previous balance or preferably to get back to a better balance so they're more resilient. And then they go through steps of restoring, sometimes with me, but also externally. Once they're restored, they find a way to integrate the things that they've added to their lives that they lost and they brought back into their lives to make them healthier overall, emotionally, sometimes physically, financially. And then that's an integration stage. And then they have to have a way to check it out and make sure that they're doing the things that got them back to balance in the first place. And that's what I see happening in the world right now. We're sort of in the evaluation/plan stage at this point, after being in kind of a denial stage before we could detect that we had a problem. And at some point we'll get back to restoring and integrating and maintaining, and we'll have a new balance, and hopefully it'll be a stronger one. Be better prepared for things like this in the future.
No, I'm with you. Throughout our whole history of mankind, I mean, times have always been insane. Now it's maybe we've amped it up a little bit with social media and how fast news gets around. But, if you study like the Bible or history books, or you step into a day in October in 2019, there's always been a craziness to life where, people are mean to each other. Maybe there's violence, there's acting out, that we're impatient, maybe we're not supportive. So to me, the insanity has always been a part of life. Do you see what's happening now actually forcing us to have a timeout and maybe just be calm within our own homes, in our own bodies? What do you see?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your sentence.
What do you see? Like, do you think this is forcing us to have a timeout to have a chance to be calm and to reevaluate and to reassess our own lives?
I think it's having that effect on a lot of people. And actually right around this week, I'm noticing it with my clients here in Massachusetts. They've gone through some of the panic phases and some of the denial phases, and now they're saying, okay, we're home now. First, they're bummed out, and then they think, well, what can I do while I'm here? And some people are really optimizing that experience. Some of my more anxious clients become my calmest clients. Other people are reconnecting with family members and integrating within their own families. A time like this also brings out underlying difficulties that maybe people could brush under the rug, but now they can't. And either they're going to now take that as an opportunity to work through those issues, say in a marriage, for example, or they're going to find that at the end of this, they don't belong together anymore. And it's hard to tell.
I was going to ask, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about marriages and relationships.
Yeah, well, I've seen it go both ways so far, and it's still early. It's been about a month that we've been kind of locked down. Some people really are using this opportunity to build their family, and other people tell me, we had the worst fight in our entire relationship last week. It's a little better now, but I guess what I'm thinking is that things are surfacing as a result of this isolation and as a result of not having as many of the usual distractions, and it's not as a result of not being able to sort of go to work and put your home life behind if that's a problem. Most people I'm working with are doing well with that after a period of it seeming really more difficult, I would say. And I'm interested in seeing how it goes in the future. In my own relationship, it's really helping to cement us. We don't live together at this point, and so we'd mostly just text back and forth. And now we have video calls at the end of the day that go on for an hour or two, and we're just getting closer through the whole process and getting to know things about each other that we didn't know before. I'm finding it, I wish this wasn't happening, but personally, that aspect of it has been really nice for me. And some of my clients are finding the same thing. Another thing that's happening is people who feel somewhat helpless are, it turns out, good in a crisis, and this is an ongoing crisis, not just a personal one. And their resourcefulness is rising to the front, and their anxiety is dropping down. That's happening with several of the people I work with. That's encouraging.
Yeah. So you said stuff is coming up for people. What kind of emotions are people going through, and what's coming up for them to be healed? I think when things come up, you got to look at it and you want to ideally heal it. So what do you see coming up for those in your practice right now?
So the older clients I work with, what's coming up is fear of dying. There aren't too many of them. So I don't have outside of the people in my immediate circle, I don't have a big sort of lens on that. My friends are roughly my age. They don't seem to be panicking particularly, but it's up now for people. It's up for people our age anyway, but now it's really because people they know are getting sick. My brother has COVID-19, and so does my sister-in-law, for example. And so I'm thinking about that all the time. Younger people aren't worrying about that so much. They might be worrying about their parents, but a lot of them are worrying about financial issues. They can float for a while, but some of them are on unemployment and they've lost their jobs. I'm encouraging them, because often they're in jobs that don't work for them anyway. They're sort of the wrong thing, or they're too low a level, and we've been talking about that in therapy. I'm encouraging them to look for whatever opportunities there might be in this crisis. And often the opportunity is, here's a pause, like you were saying, and this is a chance where you can really focus on what you're going to be doing when this is more or less past and people are going back to work. And how can you, one of my clients is trying to move into interior design as a career. Well, interior designers are not going to be hiring for a while, but the interior designers that are working now don't have much to do either. And this is a good time to do informational interviewing and find out what goes on in that field, and how do you get from being fresh out of school to working there, and which aspect of interior design. And several other of my clients are in a similar position with other fields, or they're related fields. Things that are going to ramp up are things like communicating the way we're communicating now, and online learning that way, and working at home. And so anybody that's connected to the computer business, and is not happy with what they've been doing, which is several of the people I work with, or is unemployed, I'm thinking, focus on that if that interests you, because that's going to grow. And if you're at the beginning of a wave, you get to ride it when it crests. So some people get pretty excited about that. At first, when I mentioned that to people, I was ahead of their curve. They weren't ready for that. But now they are. Now their customers are thinking, oh yeah, I could explore this field and this field and this field. And this is a good time for me to do that, because I don't have much else to do right now. that's very encouraging for me.
Yeah.
I'll have to shape this new normal that we arrive at in however many months that is.
Yeah. I just spoke to a client before our call today, and they do work with youth entrepreneurs, and the youth are feeling like all over the place. And I said, that's normal right now because
Yeah.
They don't know what success looks like. They
Yeah.
don't have anything to measure success.
Yeah.
They're not really in a sales mode. Getting a new client is going to be maybe a bit more challenging in their business. And so what I shared with them was success is just even if you put 2 to 3 hours of work at it a day, because a lot of people are feeling very unfocused, and maybe there's a bit of sadness coming up, a little bit of grief. Are you sensing that too? It's okay. Like just do what you can right now, and even a little bit of work towards your livelihood or your purpose or your soul's mission is better than no work. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm seeing that. And I am seeing people sort of beating themselves up sometimes for not doing more because now they do have this time, or for feeling depressed even, or sad. And I encourage them to cut themselves some slack. Like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal everybody's going through. But in the background, think of what you can do next. And even if you're doing just a little bit, and that little bit gives you a feeling of some kind of control over your life again, you can transfer that to something else that's a little bigger. And I saw an interesting demonstration of that. I was supposed to be in a conference in Montreal last weekend, and it happened on Zoom. And the organizers pulled it all together in 3 weeks, which is kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And they found a video clip where a guy took a little tiny domino, about as big as my thumbnail, or maybe a little bit bigger, and put it next to one that was somewhat bigger, maybe 1.5 times as large. And he stacked up 13 of these. So the final one was about 100 pounds and maybe 5 feet tall. And then with the tweezers, he set the first one next to the one next to it, and took the tip of the tweezers, because it was quite small, and knocked it over. It knocked over the next one, which knocked over the next one, which knocked over the next one. And it knocked over the 13th one, the 100-pound one, this one little push. And he said if he'd done another 10, the one before it would have been big enough or powerful enough to knock down the Empire State Building. Mm. And it was a good example of how getting started on something and blowing on a little spark. I used to be able to make flint and steel fires when I was a kid. You probably did too. Can ignite this one thing, which then can ignite this other thing, which then can ignite this bonfire eventually. And it all starts with one little tiny spark. And people seem to relate to that and feel encouraged by that and feel like the little spark thing that they did is not insignificant. So
well, that's kind of my next kind of line of questioning. So, it is a Holy Week, right? We've got Passover, Easter, Good Friday.
Yeah.
Maybe another holiday I'm missing. And here we are, we're collectively going through the desert. And we have a choice right now. We can long for the past of the way it used to be, slavery in the case of Passover, or we can build a rebirth in the case of also too Passover and Easter, right? And you feel in our heart of hearts, do you feel that humanity can now rise to the challenge and build a world that works for all? And from how we do business to healthcare, community, social, and justice programs and systems in the economy. So maybe is this notion of all hands on deck working towards implementing positive change and be involved in the reconstructing of the world is one way to achieve calm and balance in the insanity that we're leaving behind?
I think there's a lot of that happening now, and you can see that happened, say, in World War II. It's happened at lots of times in our history. I want to believe that exactly what you're saying is what will be the outcome from this.
Here too.
When I look at other times, though, that human beings have gone through incredible crises and have pulled together and have been united and against a common problem, or the Depression is another one. It seems like it lasts for a generation, and then other things start to come up, and we end up somewhat back to where we were maybe a generation before. So that's really what I think will happen. I don't know. Maybe this time will be the one because it's the whole world all at once. I mean, even World War II didn't affect everybody, but this is affecting everybody. Maybe it will have that sort of transformative property. I hope so.
I do too. Here's an example of the insanity. In case anybody watching wants a reminder. And you're from Massachusetts, so you'll know this story. NFL superstar quarterback, with the New England Patriots, Tom Brady, at the onset of the corona outbreak, decides to leave the Patriots to become a free agent and sign a huge deal with, I think, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. To me, David, this is when that news broke. I thought, really, this guy's doing this now? Like this is all important. So we have people losing jobs, the social fabric of society is coming undone, and this guy's concerned about probably signing the richest contract in his career. Yep. When we begin to maybe work for each other and drop the differences and work, together, this is also, to me, one way to have calm. When we work for ourselves or our ego, that's when calm falls by the wayside and the insanity prevails. What's your take on that? Like, one way to sort of have that balance is to work together and collaborate and team up and build community. What's your take on that towards having peace and serenity and calm?
Well, I think it's an extension of the question you asked a moment ago, and I think the answer is also an extension of that. I do see that the initial response is kind of like every man for himself. So people are stop hoarding toilet paper and cleaning out the shelves of this and that. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure they have enough. The guy at this conference I mentioned, he called it the hair on fire moment. Then most people seem to calm down and realize we are all in this together and find ways to help each other. I know a lot of people who are decent with sewing and they're all making masks because there aren't enough masks. Other people are, somebody can't get out or they don't have some supply and they'll drive maybe 50 miles to drop off a bag of groceries that they can't get locally. The mayor of this town, the town of Beverly, puts out just about every day a really reassuring band together as a community message. It's really touching. Cuomo sort of does that too for the whole state of New York. The other side is also happening where the every man for himself attitude comes up just as much. It's hard to say. We always have that struggle between those two different forces. I'm hoping that one thing this will bring about as we struggle through it over time is that the banding together will win out over the every man for himself, and that will last.
I'm with you. Let's look at the 6 steps towards recovering from this and the trauma that we're all experiencing right now and achieving balance. What are those 6 steps that you outline in the book?
So the first one is noticing that you have a problem. Usually people are in the problem for a long time before they realize, oh, this really is something. Like people who have a problem with drinking can have a problem with drinking for years before they realize this is actually negatively affecting every aspect of my life. In addiction circles, they call that the pre-contemplative phase, where you're not even thinking about seeking any kind of treatment because you don't think you have a problem. We did that with the virus. I mean, the virus, both in China, they knew about it in November. They didn't do anything about it until January. We knew about it in January. We didn't really do anything about it until March. And that was a denial phase. Donald Trump was telling us that it's no big deal. It's the corona flu.
Yeah, he said we'd be back in church tomorrow for Good Friday.
Right. And so his administration and a lot of the whole nation, and I still see it happening around here. I still see, even though now it's not permitted, I see bands of people getting together and doing things like they used to do them. And some of those people are going to get sick and some of those people are going to spread it to other people. Mm-hmm. So that's like before the 6 steps, there's this denial stage. And then suddenly you realize, oh crap, something's wrong. I'm really tottering, and in this case, the whole country and the whole world. And that usually stops people in their tracks. And when they're stopped in their tracks, they try to figure out what happened. They try to figure out what their options are. They're still somewhat panicky. And I mean, that's when they wind up in my office, typically for an individual problem. They realize I need some kind of help. Maybe I should talk to a therapist, or maybe 6 of their friends have told them they should talk to a therapist. They can't, this is more than they can deal with. Then in the therapy context, the client and I will start to evaluate how did you get here? What was behind it? What are your options at this point? People do that individually too. People that do that collectively. As a nation, we're doing that collectively. We're all reading and watching things and trying to figure out what's really going on. It's a shifting pattern. The CDC is trying to figure it out. Maybe the virus is transmitted this way. Maybe it's transmitted that way. Maybe this is a safe thing to do. Oh, maybe that's not quite so safe. But this thing we thought wasn't so safe, maybe that one's okay. It's all trying to be sorted out. That's sort of the evaluation stage that people go through individually, and now we're all going through. Once we get a pretty good understanding of what's happening, how it got there, we start to think about, well, where do we want to go from here? Can we go back to the way things were? Or are things going to change in some substantial way because we learned something about the world and ourselves that we didn't know before? And that I call the plan stage, where people look at their problems and they see what possibilities there are for resources. And they see what things they may even have to invent. They may see connections they might not have made before. A lot of people asking for help who have never had help before because they realize they need it. They're becoming vulnerable in ways they had never been vulnerable before. So in the planning stage, which we're not even entering yet, and we're on the cusp of entering it in terms of the coronavirus, the pandemic. From there, you go to the restore stage, where you do notice the things that can help you get back to balance. So some of that, say, in the financial markets, there's a constantly changing view of how much money it will take to try to support the economy so we don't have a depression. There's constantly shifting views of what kind of aid they need to give to individuals, to businesses, which ones are important, which ones are not so important. And then some of those things will start to be implemented, and the same thing medically. So, I mean, it's sort of terrible, but in the state of Massachusetts, there are now rules for triage. So if someone comes in and they're my age and they're probably going to die from it, and somebody comes in who's got a bad case, but if they get the right kind of treatment, they'll make it. And maybe they're 10 years younger than me or 20 years younger than me. The treatment's going to go to them. They're just going to try to make me comfortable, just like in a battle situation. Mm. And that needs to be done. And I think that triage approach is happening more on a global level too, not just medically. Like, what are the things that, we just have to let those go for now, because it would take too much energy to put into that to restore it. These other things we don't have to pay so much attention to because they're going to be okay on their own. These are the things where we need to optimize our approach, whether it's financially or it's medically or it's handling food supply, things like that. That's the first phase of the restore stage that I think we're going through, all of us. And in individual lives, it's what are the things I can do right now that will make my life feel normal and controllable, even if it's a different normal. I think about the movie, what's it called? A Beautiful Life. I think it was Robert Benigni, the one where he found a way to have his son believe that he's in a normal life while they're in a concentration camp. Mm-hmm. Beautiful movie. It's a work of imagination, of course, but in some way we have to find a way to find alternatives to what we used to do that made us feel normal and balanced, that work in this new context. And it will shift and evolve, and we have to be sensitive to how it will shift and evolve as we finally get to the point where we are restored. And I mean, that's, I think, the process that we're going through in the next few months as a nation, but also individually, as a world, but also individually. I don't know if that quite answers your question, does it?
It did. And I want to thank you for this. I have more questions I want to ask you, but our next guest is here. This is your website. It's davidbookbinder.com. And also your book's available on Amazon as well. So I'll just share that. There it is. And The Art of Balance, Staying Sane in an Insane World. I really appreciate this, David.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I should also add, I'm making a course out of the book, and I'm going to try to make just maybe a half-hour version of a lot of what we just talked about and put that out as a free course, trying to use this system to work through what's going on now in the pandemic. I'll probably post it on udemy.com. I think I'm going to call it The Art of Balance, and the subtitle will have something to do with, finding your balance in a global crisis, not just staying sane in an insane world.
Yeah. And that could be your legacy, like in case this happens again down the road, right? So
yeah.
I appreciate this.
Well, it's been great. being here with you.
Yeah, it's been a joy. If you have to press on, feel free. If you want to stay for the hour.
No, I'd like to stick around.
Okay, yeah.
I don't have another client for 20 minutes anyway.
Okay, all right. Good. I'm glad. And you'll like our next guest, actually. And our next guest is here. It's Karen Virdi, and again, davidbookbinder.com. Welcome, Karen. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nice to see you too. Hi, David. The other David.
It's
the David Club.
It's the loyal order of David. So, Karen, you're on a mission to help you discover your spiritual power, understand and rely on loving guidance from the universe.
Yes.
Stronger into your light, so you can learn to heal yourself from any past, current pains, anxieties, or fears, which are holding you back from living the extraordinary life you came here to live.
Yes.
You'll learn from working with you that there's proven natural healing modalities that are offered, that you can live consciously, raise your vibration, make better decisions, be in the flow, feel happier, harmonious, grounded in chaos, which we're in, as we now know.
Yes,
and
yes.
become a powerful co-creator. You'll reduce stress, balance your chakras, and clean your aura. Now, you came to this work after feeling years of sadness, fear, frustration, anxious, after you sustained a head injury in 2011, which was the guiding catalyst in your own awakening.
Yes.
And you knew it was time to heal, finally, self-empower yourself to live an extraordinary life. And you are here to help others do the same. And now it's time for you to shine and glow. You're coming. And feel illuminated. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So here we were, chatting with David about being calm in an insane world. What advice are you working or coaching your clients on in terms of them dealing with their own uncertainty, and these definitely uncertainty times 10 that we're in right now, and not to give up? Like I felt yesterday, like, wow, man, I'm really here to help people right now, but to me, it's like, no, man, the darkness is like winning the battle, and I'm just, maybe I should just give up and just,
Yeah, no, we never want to give up on the darkness. We never we want to stay connected to the light, and we want to keep putting that energy out there, right? Because that's the energy that's really going to shift everything, and is shifting everything, right? So you just got to keep going. So to answer your question, in terms of the beautiful people I get to work with, that I feel so honored to work with, one main thing I'm telling them a lot during this time is to find that sort of spiritual practice that is going to help them stay grounded. It's going to help them stay connected. It's going to help them feel like it's going to help propel them into their faith versus their fear. So that means they have to kind of get out of here and go into the heart space, which is where a lot of people don't really, from what I've seen, and when I look at my own life before I collapsed, I was so much more up here that I could never find that alignment and peace. And that makes situations such as this far worse than they really have to be, because your mind starts to play, that monkey mind starts to play tricks on you. And I'm going to really just say it that way, right? And you start to feed it, because we're so used to thinking that our mind is our savior, but it's actually not. It's really just a storage system, right? To some degree. And we have to go with our true essence of a human being. And this is from a place of feeling, right? Because we're meant to feel. And from that space of feeling, we're knowing. And this is the perfect time, in this time where so many people are everybody's quarantined, is to think about, what hasn't been working out for me? What is working out for me? What have I been neglecting? What have I not been doing enough of? Or how is my output versus my input? And this is the perfect time, David, to think about this stuff, because this is always the stuff that's on the back burner, because we're so busy in our schedule, driving through traffic, dropping our kids, getting to work, chop, chop, chop. Everything is time. And we're so burnt out, after our output to our employer. And, and we don't have enough time when we get home. Same routine, you go through traffic, pick up your kids, you have your dinner, etc. And we don't have time to feed our soul. And that creates a lot of disruptions. It's proven the energy starts to get disrupted. And then what ends up happening is that when illnesses and diseases start to generate, the disease line starts to form, right? So does that answer your question?
A little bit. So,
Yeah. Okay.
spend time on the things maybe that matter, reevaluate your life. What if
Yes.
you invest in things you think matter,
Hmm.
certain friends, people, family, but they're not responding to you the way you'd like? What do you do then? Like
So, yeah. So I think it
when
depends
they're
on,
closed off and they're going through their own angst and shit. Pardon my
so no, it's okay. So are you talking about what's kind of happening right now or just in
But
general?
just in general or right now.
Okay.
Like, let's say one of the things is,
Mhm.
I'm going to reach out to my family in this.
Yeah.
And you do, and you throw an olive branch out, and yet
Hmm.
not reciprocated, maybe in the way you were
Yeah.
expecting to or hoping.
Well, I think generally, whether it's a pandemic or no pandemic, the first thing is you have to look at yourself and you have to say to yourself, where am I coming from? And to me, because I always operate from my heart first, I always remind myself that I've done I'm going to just use the word duty as a human being, as a soul, to send out that love, extend that olive branch. And I've done my part to help grow and send out that good energy. And it's really up to the other person to receive it that way. But that receiving only happens if that person's in that awareness. It all boils down to awareness, right? You and I know that, and so does the other David. We all know that, right? It's awareness. And I don't think we should feel bad. I'm just going to say this because we're talking about this. Nobody should feel bad if someone doesn't reach out to you, because, not everybody's always ready. But never underestimate. There's this famous saying, and I don't remember who said it, but it was something along the lines like, don't underestimate the power of planting a seed within somebody, like seeing the light in somebody, because if not at that moment, maybe a few days after, that person will realize, well, I really needed that message from so and so, right? And you got to keep doing your part from compassion and humility and humanity from that perspective. That's my opinion, and that's how I operate every day of my life.
Yeah, but sometimes it gets a little tiring, and you might not see that seed grow as fast as we'd like. What then? Like, how do we?
Yeah, I think right there is
or do we keep feeding it? Or do we
I think you can keep feeding it to some degree. I think you can keep feeding it to some degree with discernment. I mean, you don't want your whole day on that, obviously, because you've got other things to do. But I think that looking at it's your perception of things, right? Looking at it like it's going to bloom when it should for that person, and I'm going to just put that out there. And I think that's the best way to be, because that way you're not setting yourself up to feel like you didn't succeed or you failed. And that way you're staying in alignment with your flow and your purpose and your mission.
I think we have to be really judicious and mindful of where we're investing our time and energy right now. What's your take?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I've been saying to everybody when all this sort of came out the first week, that everyone's going to get scared very quickly, because the uncertainty for most people makes you very scared and the body perceives it as danger. But this is actually, if you just breathe and get yourself out of that survival mode, which is the fear mode and the lack of control mode, if you just breathe and go into that place of knowing that we all have, you're going to be fine when you're really connected in that space. And on top of that, it makes you move out of your head back into the heart, but it reminds you everything's okay. Like, everything's going to just keep moving and going as it should. And you don't have a lot of control over everything. It's just how you perceive things, right? It's the perception, right? And the surrender.
So one way to get back a little bit of control, I've been, after the second week of this, I started getting messages of be more quiet and
Yes.
off the noise and the clutter of the internet.
Yes.
You had a day Sunday where
I was heavy.
Yeah, and you needed to be silent.
Yes.
So talk to us about the importance of silence, meditation.
Yes.
Just disconnecting as part of our spiritual practice right now.
Right. Perfect. Well, here's what I want to say about meditation. And this is my opinion, and this is what I use so that I don't get into this theory part, because when people get too much into theory, sometimes then you feel like if you get out of that pigeonhole theory that you're not accomplishing. So if someone's thinking about meditation, because a lot of people that I work with say, I find it hard to meditate, because I'm like, well, what do you think of it? It's what you're thinking about it that's making it difficult. Because when I think of meditation, my definition is I'm just focusing, I'm closing my eyes, I'm just focusing on the cycle of my breath. And that's all I'm focusing on. And in that space, I get expanded, my energy expands, I connect to my true self, my inner knowing, and I connect to that source energy. Because it's through that silence that can only be done successfully. I think a lot of people have this other perception of meditation that you have to start floating and levitating. Great if you have that, but you want to aim for like the basic of it is just the cycle of the breath. And in that space, you just keep going up higher and higher to different stages, right? So that's that. But the importance of that, as you know, is in a mind that carries 50, 60,000 thoughts a day, probably if not more, and they're constantly running. How can you, if you're too much up here, how can you find the essence of who you are and be in alignment and be in your highest vibration and optimal health if you're constantly listening to the story or stories in your head, which most people who end up getting sick, from what I've seen and how I felt before I collapsed, I was always in my head, right? So right now, because there's so much social media coverage with this stuff, there's so much uncertainty still, so many questions still unanswered, so many shifts and changes happening with the homeschooling with kids, et cetera, everybody changing their schedule. This is not normal for people. So it's creating still a lot of chaos. But if you stay in that energy of chaos, in that resistance, it's going to create more. But this is where the meditation and just the 5 minutes a day minimum to start, just breathing, being away from everybody and just focusing on the cycle of your breath, where you can start to connect and get more coherent. And that's the key. Because if you're up here, you're not going to be coherent. In my opinion, what I've noticed in the people I've worked with in my own personal journey, and even things I have read about some of my greatest spiritual teachers like Dr. Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay. If you're too much here, you're not going to, and Tracy for us as well too, you're never going to get to that place of alignment with yourself, right?
Yeah, and one other practice, you really believe in to get us from here to here is the practice of gratitude. So
oh, yes.
Talk to us about, you talk a lot about gratitude in your work. And
I do.
Radical gratitude.
Yes.
It can lift our spirits too, can bring in more blessings. Talk to us about making gratitude part of our daily practice and why it's so vital now for our mental health and existence.
Right. Well, right now, I think it's more important than ever, but generally speaking, it's a beautiful tool. I've been practicing it consciously since 2014 in my journey through speaking, through writing in my journal. And I'll tell you, it really helped me heal after I collapsed. It really helped me remind myself and get myself out of my head, remind myself that actually everything around me is enough. There's no shortage in my life. It showed me the beautiful miracles I already had that can be missed very easy when you're too much in a harried schedule and you're too much thinking of, I need this, right? Because the ego is never satisfied. And helped to remind me that and put me into this beautiful natural flow, right? Most people are going against their flow, but it helps to put you in that flow of love. And the gratitude energy is love. And we all know this, that love is the grandest, greatest vibration on our planet. And that's always has been and always will be the miracle cure for everything, right?
Yeah.
So right now, in this time where there's so much chaos, and I say this to people I work with all the time, and actually even did a live gratitude experiment with people the second week this happened, and it was phenomenal because people got to see, well, while I've been so worried, and you have to think about, obviously, to some degree what's going on, be mindful, but neutral, the best you can. Actually, I still have my home. I still have running water. I still have food for my family. I still have some money. I still have a car if I have to go A to B to get my essentials. Like, you can forget all that stuff because that one part of that fear and area and focus in the media that's put out there will make you forget that. And that's when you find the people hoarding and people going, oh my God, right? But David, and I know, we all know that doesn't serve you, right? That doesn't help you grow and ascend. And that makes everybody around you anxious as well, too. So right now, if there's one practice, it's got to be either breathing or your gratitude or both together, because that's what's going to help people get through this. So,
David, what's your take? Do you want to chime in here for a sec?
It's interesting you mentioned gratitude and meditation. The two things I've also been focusing on, both in my clients. I have a little breath meditation that I have people do throughout the day. If they've never meditated before, they can do it for 3 breaths. That help them reset many times, and they get used to resetting after that and waiting. I've had people making gratitude lists or keeping gratitude.
Yes.
So I think both those things are really important tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially in these times, but in general. I mean, not just
Yes.
good things to have in your life, because as Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist, says, we almost always have sufficient conditions to be happy. We're not oriented that way. We're oriented towards wanting more, and if we lose it, we want it back. But
Yes.
like you say, the things that I made a gratitude list, challenged myself in 10 minutes to come up with 50 things. And it was easy. I had more than things. And the last one I came up with, it happened to be a hot day, was popsicles. But
Yes.
I was popsicle at that moment, you know.
I love that. I love that. I love
So,
that.
yeah, I completely with what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was happy that here, David, they're showing reruns of the Blue Jays World Series wins in 92, 93 on our sports network.
Mm-hmm.
Happy we won the World Series.
Yeah. Still grateful.
Yeah, I'm still grateful. Karen, you know, I had
Yes.
an interesting discussion with a friend yesterday
Yeah.
about how our thoughts and our words create our reality. And, you know, even, I don't want to get all biblical, but even the
Yeah.
Bible says in the beginning was the word, right?
Yes.
What would happen?
Mhm.
This is what we were talking about. We went a little deeper.
Okay.
What would happen if we changed the conversation about Corona?
Mhm.
One of, what's your dream? What's your vision? What's your hope? What actions will you take to get there? So what if we begin to not talk about what's going on right now,
Right.
and refocus our thoughts and talk about what we want to see happen in our lives, in the world, in our communities? What's your take on that? The power of the word and our thoughts and our vision.
Oh, I'm all for that. And that's a strong foundation of my work that I do, because, and it's something that, and you know, when I'm speaking to, I'm not speaking from a hub expert. I'm speaking from my experience, from collapsing, hitting my rock bottom, and using these tools that I'm talking to you about today, that I use to help, you know, generate more life force and manifest the life that I have right now with this work that I only would think would ever be a dream in another lifetime for me, right? So this is coming from a deep place of knowing and experience. And this is why I can talk about this. Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of people forget that words and what comes out of our mouth carries energy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that very easily with people who are always complaining about the same topic. And it's not until you stop and say, well, look, you keep feeding that energy through your words. So that's the vibration that you're on, right? And our thoughts correlate to that as well too. It's all connected, right? You know this. And when you're in that, when you're in a certain vibration, well, to answer your question, I think I'm answering your question, but when you're in a certain vibration, your words and your thoughts correlate and show that. And then your physical reality shows it too. And your body shows it too, carrying all the emotions and traumas and the hard words you're using for yourself. But right now, and it doesn't even have to be right now because of this virus, but in general, you know, I feel that anytime we're presented, and this is the mindset a lot of people are afraid to work towards, because it requires them to get out of a comfort zone. It requires them to worry about what people say. Is always use your words and your thoughts for your greater good. Like the way I see it is, you came here, you chose to come here in a physical form. You're an extension of source energy. You're an extension of God. And if God is pure love, you are pure love and light. You want to celebrate yourself. You want to be good to yourself.
Yeah.
You want to speak from that vibration, because that's infectious. And that's a huge lesson I learned, because I never saw myself good enough because of the way I was raised. And it's not my mom's fault. It's just her awareness. But I've learned from that's what I was carrying, her programming and my ancestral programming. And that's how I was speaking. But once I started shifting my vision, how I spoke, then the things that seemed so bad weren't so bad, and the things that I wanted to create would start to come to life. And right now, the more you talk about the coronavirus, the more people keep sending statistics, the more people keep feeding it, they're imprinting themselves. And what's happening then is you're not able to get out of that vibration energy, and it keeps you stuck, and you can't get into the light, right? You can't move from that space because you're not in the solution finding energy, right? Because everything is the energy.
So maybe that's the start. We got to start changing the conversation.
100%. Like I have a little group chat with some of my friends, and some of them send a lot of stats. I look at them, I respect their view. That's what they want to focus on, but I'm neutral. I don't let it come into my space. And my children have done the same too. We use Tracy's tool, we reject it, right? So that's the one thing. But I'm always talking about the virus. In my live meditations I do, that it is off this earth. Everybody who is affected is fully repaired and restored. Thank you, God. And that's how I speak about it. And I keep telling everybody that it's not about even the virus. It's about the stuff that's happening underneath, that's cleaning out for the greater good, because we really truly are in a great awakening. And I think we all can feel it just happening. I felt it immediately, that there was nothing to be worried about. I mean, I'm not being insensitive, because I know some people have transitioned from this. I don't trust the numbers, but some people have transitioned. But remember, I'm going to say this on this note, that there's a cycle of birth and death, and people choose when they want to exit, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But, and I'm not being insensitive at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope no one takes it that way, but it's time to look at things in a different way and push this energy out, push anything out. It doesn't have to be the virus, but anything in your life, anything you feel, talk to yourself, ask yourself, why is this happening? What can I do? What am I willing to do? Do I feel worthy? And start changing that conversation, and then watch what starts to happen. Right. I'm another one that's living proof of that. So there's lots of people.
How did you get from head injury to feeling less than, not good enough? And we all feel that way, by the way.
I know.
I went through that process last year with a foot injury.
Right.
And thank God for Louise Hay. And now when I do my gratitude journal and my affirmations, I always say I love and approve of myself.
Yes.
Right. And it really does help. So
yes, it does.
How do we get from that place of feeling less than, not good enough? Who am I? Or I can't, have the life I really want. And maybe we feel guilty because look at what's going on around us. Who am I to have a life?
Right.
How do we get from that into a place of, yeah, you know what? I deserve it. We all deserve it.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves it.
Well, I think this is a place, it starts off with how you feel about yourself, right? Like, to get to that place where you already don't feel worthy and you're not well, you've been believing stuff that isn't true about yourself, right? So you don't feel good in that space, because you get signals through your physical body, your mind, and just your breathing, and all that gets affected by it, because you're bringing in a different vibration that's not aligned to your light vibration that we all have, right? So from that space, you have to, first of all, ask yourself, why am I not feeling so? You have to, first of all, understand that there is something that's not working for you. Like, there is an issue, right? Because you're not feeling good. And most people and I think the other David he has obviously more experience than I do, but a lot of people know they're not feeling well, but they're scared to admit it because of other things around them that they've been programmed to believe and see. But in your deep down knowing, if you to close your eyes and if you're not feeling well, there's that voice in you that says, you're not supposed to be feeling this way. You deserve to feel better. And that's the thing you have to pull up, that light, and you have to make it bigger. And then from that space, you have to tell yourself, I do want to feel better. And actually, I can feel better. I can. I think a lot of people also think, there's so many different parts to this, that people think, I can't feel better, right? Because you get so used to thinking in one way. But the beautiful part of life is you can feel better, and even like this in a minute. You just have to step into that space of saying, I'm worthy and I want to. And like Louise Hay always says, your willingness, right? Your willingness.
And
so
your intention too.
Yes. And then from there, it's like every step you go up, another one comes, and it's an extension of the step before. Right. And it becomes kind of effortless. Right. That's what I've noticed in my journey. It's become effortless because I'm always in that vibration. And that's what people have to remember. And, when I collapsed, I hit my rock bottom in 2011. I was like, what now, God? What do I do with my life? And my ego was so big at that time, because it was like, oh my God, I'm not going to have that paycheck. This can't happen to me. I'm Karen. I'm supposed to be doing this. I can go on and on for another segment on that. But
so what was life like then for you?
Oh, it was really hard. I had a lot of anxiety, and it was an accumulation of anxiety I had since I would say starting from the age of 8. And it was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. I felt depressed, but not that clinical depressed where I felt I needed medication, but I was off, and I would cry a lot by myself. And because I was home during the day with my son, who was about a little over a year. So he was, quite small. And I felt very defeated. And I felt very confused, and I felt like my whole life, who I am, my identity of what I thought I was, had just shattered up in many different million pieces. And now my job was to bring it back, but I didn't know how because I was physically still healing. And on top of that, I was taking care of my 2 kids, my husband. Then I had the year after a sick mother-in-law, then a sick father-in-law, then my husband got sick. So there was a lot of stuff happening for me in a short period of time. But one thing I didn't do was I didn't allow that yucky, dark voice in me to keep hammering me down. Even if it was there, I kept saying, no, I'm going to go past it. I'm going to go through it, because I've always had that strong spirit, even as a young girl. And I just kept moving. I kept moving. And I kept saying to the universe, God, whatever name you want to call it, show me what I need to know about this. Why did this happen? Because I didn't want to sit in a corner and feel victimized. I don't like that feeling. It doesn't suit me. I wanted to persevere, and I wanted to do something really grand, because now I felt God had given me a second chance at life. That's what I truly felt. And when I surrendered, which was hard because I was a control freak, I was such a micromanager. It was no wonder I collapsed, among other reasons. But I got to a place where I was able to surrender. And that's through the meditations I started doing. And that space just opened up this beautiful awareness. And all of a sudden, my anxiety just, it was like, okay, this is weird. I was so used to having that, and now it's gone. And then in that space, just manifesting and bringing in more stuff. And then I said to my husband, I need to be doing other work. I cannot go back to corporate. So I resigned from there. And I said, I feel there's something more I need to do. And then from that space, because I was so open and I was believing to receive, oh boy, David, all these things were just coming up naturally in my space, and they were catching my attention, and I kept following them. And it's led me to where I am today, right now. So sorry, that was a bit long, but I wanted to make it as succinct as I could, so everybody can understand
it took all that for you to be a guest on this.
Yes, exactly.
You could have just asked, you didn't have to do all that for just to be here today.
But I think it's just what I wanted to say from my story was, and I think other David could say, concur with this, is that all these things that I felt, and I haven't even gone really deep, is everybody feels them. Everybody has gone through them, a head injury or not, right? What I had, or, everything, we feel this. And it's just recognizing, A, we're not alone. B, we can change. We're in control. And B, and D, there's a powerful energy and power within us, a superhuman power that we can unleash and use, which will help us to get to a place of higher awareness and evolution. And I think that's very important.
So, higher power meaning God, and we can't leave God out of the equation, or whoever it is.
Yes. Yes.
Right, too. David talked about Buddhism.
Yes.
And, so, yeah, I'm always reminded of the Buddhist too.
Yes.
We went to Harvey's one day, and he ordered a hamburger. I went, dude, you can't have meat. He said, so when he went to order his hamburger at Harvey's, they asked, what would you like on it? You know what he said, the Buddhist monk? Make me one with everything.
I love that. Yeah. I love that.
So what is this connection to God? What's that look like, especially for you in your journey?
It's an awareness. That's the best word for me to describe it from my experience. It's an awareness. It's a knowing that there is something that I am connected to and a part of. And I have seen a lot of evidence of it as I have become more awake in my life. And everybody's connected to this energy. Every single person. There's no thing that's not connected. Everything is connected to this.
And how has it helped you realize?
Wow. It's helped me on many different levels. It's helped me understand my relationships. It's helped me understand the power within me, and power not from ego, but that humility, that oneness within me. It's helped me realize that everything happens for a reason, and it's that hand of God that will intervene when it needs to. And I know when I collapsed, that was the hand of God intervening, because if that had not happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. I know that it's a place of miracles, and it's a place of just peace, flow. That's what I know for sure. And that's what I experience daily in my life.
I hear you.
Yes.
We're out of time, but.
Okay. Sorry. Was I talking?
No, I've got a couple more questions I want to do.
Okay.
There have been a few themes in my life this year. One is self-love.
Okay.
The other is healing.
Right.
Why, in your estimation, are we afraid of what's inside in terms of healing trauma?
Mhm.
and coming to peace with it. And why are we afraid of it? And then how do we begin to love who we are, imperfections and all?
Okay. I think from my humble experiences and just my opinion, why it's hard for people is because first of all, we're in a system that doesn't really teach us a lot about who we are inside, because it's a lot about memory and a lot of times numbers and information, right? So it doesn't really, it separates us, I think, from who we are. So that's the first part of it. That's a component. And the second part, I think, it is a lot of people are not even sure what they're feeling because they haven't had that training and awareness in the conventional system or in the home. And I think another component is if you're aware of it and you know you're carrying something, you're afraid to deal with it because it's easier to shove it under the rug and keep it harbored in your body than to talk about it, because that seems like a lot of work for people. And the truths come up and people have a hard time with the truths, right? Because it's scary and it makes you forget that. And if you're already feeling like you're not empowered to handle your truth, would be like, wow, I don't even know where to start here. This is too much work. This is complicated. And that's going to create immediate defeat. So I think that's a big component. So does that make sense?
Yeah. How do we get this message of maybe hope and
Yeah.
that miracles can happen and good things can happen and change can happen and abundance can happen and healing can happen? How do we get this out to people in other countries? I think in America, we're tapping into this a lot.
Yeah.
Some of us, but how do we get it to countries that they don't know this?
Well, I think we do our part to keep spreading the light, and we all do that. We all have that, every single human on our planet, and some of us are connected, but some of us are not to it, but it's still within us. The ones that have that light and they're able to have this, they're awake, as we say. We have to just keep putting that message out there, because that's an energy we're putting out there, and especially right now. And the more that energy happens and goes out into the world, and we grab more people in our community to do that, the more that energy spreads. And that's where I think a lot of people will feel it. And I do believe everybody in their heart of hearts, if they were to close their eyes, they would know that there's a place of hope and healing and more awareness. But again, it's scary for people to know that that's within them, because, wow, I really actually have that power, because I've always been in a system where I've been powerless. But I think the things like your platform and just things we all do generally that are considered light workers, I mean, if that's the right words to use, keep doing that, because more people are waking up, more people need to wake up, but the light will always defeat the darkness.
Wow.
That's my personal opinion, and that's what I strongly, strongly feel in my heart.
I love it. I agree too. Although I have my moments.
Yeah, it's okay. We all have our moments, but you just go right back to that place the best you can, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay.
My last question is this.
Yeah.
What good can come out of what we're going through collectively right now?
There's so much good. One huge thing, and I think David, the other David, can attest to this as well too, with people he works with, is I've noticed a lot more people coming together. I have felt more stronger vibration in the heart, people linking their arms more, people checking in on people more, which is something that people couldn't do before, because, you know, oh, I'm so busy, sorry, can't talk to you right now, or sorry, you know, you messaged me a week ago, but I'm messaging you a month after or a few days after, right? And that happens sometimes, legitimately, but people are concerned, like, are you okay? What can I get for you? Because people don't have that always when they're busy, that time or that awareness, because it's always about their survival at that point. But I think this is going to really help put a lot of things in perspective about money, the systems that control us, more heart-centeredness. I think people are going to realize that there actually is no divisions between us. We're all one, working for the same goal, which is to be who we are, loved, and do what we have to do on the physical planet as long as we're here. And I think a lot of people are going to start to take care of themselves better. I think health issues are going to decrease, because people are going to really start to see, wow, I actually like this pace right now I'm at, versus that go, fast pace. And that doesn't serve anybody, right? To some degree, right? Unless you're really balancing your life out. But there's so many beautiful things I can already see coming from this. It's just, we have to clean out the mud, like we do under the lotus flower, for the petals to open and the light to shine through.
Spring cleaning, which is
100%.
We are.
100%.
Are you okay to lead us in a little 3-minute meditation?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking today, because this week felt like a strong week for prayer. I actually am doing a live prayer tonight, 7:30 on my Instagram. And I wrote down the things I wanted to send out there through my words. I would thought that would be beneficial for today, if that's okay, because I felt that's what I needed to connect to more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you have time? Because if you don't, if there's another guest.
Hey, it's all the time in the world. It's just,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm so glad we had you on.
Oh, thank you so much for thinking of me. I really, really appreciate it. I really do.
You've got really nice energy.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're in Mississauga, right?
I'm in Brampton.
Brampton, okay.
I'm in Brampton, yes.
There's the website.
Yes, thank you so much. Which I will be changing soon. So I'll do a little bit just to
I
look it up a bit.
Too. I'm going through a whole rebrand.
Yeah, exactly. But it's okay. Yeah. All right. So do you want me to read the full entire prayer? It's a few pages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pages. Short version.
Okay. I'm going to read one page, the first page, okay? Because the first page is quite powerful, okay? Yeah. All right. So this, again, would be geared to my Shining Glow community that I work with.
Yeah.
And I would say we, but we would be me, you, David, and anybody else who would see this, okay? All right. We now come together, join our hearts stronger than ever to bring in and send more healing light and energy out onto our beautiful planet, our Mother Earth. Thank you, God. We send and ask God for the full repair and restoration of any soul who has been affected by this virus, and see them fully recovered and better, and better. Thank you, God. We pray and declare for anyone near or far, known or unknown, who has been affected by this to feel safe and secure. Thank you, God. We pray and declare for safety and ask to protect all the frontline workers who leave their homes each day to serve us. We pray and declare for safety and protection and ask God to take care and protect all the doctors, nurses, and paramedics and all medical staff all over the world, known or unknown, who are taking care of those affected right now. Thank you, God. We ask you, God, to connect more hearts together and the energy of love be the only and all dominant vibration and force on our planet right now. Thank you, God. We ask you, God, to give extra love and light and awareness to anyone who is still so fearful during this time, to be guided by their faith, and for the removal of the spirit of fear out of their mind, body, and soul. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Where do we reach you to work with you?
So you can I can give you my number to contact. It's 416-804-1886, or my email is shineandglow, GLO, with Karen @gmail.com. And I have Twitter, which is Shine and Glow with Karen, Instagram, Shine and Glow. And again, the glow is spelled GLO as well. And my Facebook as well too is Shine and Glow on as well.
Beautiful. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A day and long weekend ahead. And that was Karen Virdi and David Bookbinder. What a great show. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll be back with a few more shows and new announcements. So stay with us on the Good Morning Wake Up Show.